If your creative push has helped you, you can help out the show by shopping on Amazon.com. All you have to do is head to yourcreativepush.com/Amazon. That will take you right there and you can shop how you normally would. A small percentage of your purchases will go directly to helping cover the costs of creating, hosting, and maintaining your creative push. And you can make a big difference just by buying the things that you're going to anyway. Again, that's yourcreativepush.com/Amazon. And thank you for thinking of the show and for helping out. Your Creative Push, episode 196.
This is your life. This is not a couple of years. This is your life. So ask questions that are relevant for your life.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngmin Brown, and my guest today is Nicolás Uribe. Nicolás is a painter born in Madison, Wisconsin, currently based in Bogotá, Colombia. He graduated with honors as an illustration major from School of Visual Arts in New York. Nicolás has had numerous solo exhibitions both in the United States and South America and has exhibited his work in Mexico, Spain, and Egypt, among other countries. He splits his time between preparing works for upcoming projects and teaching life drawing and painting at the Fine Arts Faculty of the Xavierian University in Bogotá. And Nicolás, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I was wondering if you could start out by kind of giving us a brief history of how you got to the point you are today in your artistic career.
Sure. And then first off, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of this podcast.
Oh, thanks, man.
I am one in the line of like a generation of artists. My grandfather was German and ended up in Colombia. That's another sort of very serendipitous story. But he was an artist. He was like an architect, sculptor, artist. He fled from the war. I guess he was like this sort of free spirit. He just didn't want to be part of it. He ended up in Colombia before the war and met my grandmother, who's from Colombia. And then they had 3 kids. One of them is my mother, who actually is an artist too. She's a great grandmother now. She's an amazing grandmother to my kids and my nephews and nieces. She was a wonderful draftsman and printmaker. She did printmaking for years, and that's sort of how I got into it. I used to just draw nonstop when I was little, and my mother would just find it natural for me to draw, and she would introduce me to her day-to-day sort of work in her artist studio. I have etchings, like actual like dry points and etchings that I would do when I was about 9 years old. And it's,
cool.
You know, the images are what you would expect a 9-year-old to do. They're just monsters and, you know, very asymmetrical monsters. But I remember I have this very vivid memory of etching with her and actually, you know, putting plates in acid and, you know, acid sort of burning my hands. Nothing like, you know, violent, but, you know, how you would get like, you know, these tiny little bubbles. And you would, you know, my hands would get really white from the acid, and I would think that was so cool. I would feel like, you know, that's awesome. I'm an artist. But she would actually make me print, you know, those plates in a very sort of rigorous manner. It's just really, really be like pure technique. And I guess, you know, that discipline just was there always. Even if I was just, you know, drawing my, you know, monsters and all these like, you know, imaginary universes from my head, it was in a disciplined manner. And I honestly owe it to her, that support, which was there with, you know, with my father too, and the rest of my family. But I guess it started with her. It started with her attitude and just feeling that, you know, it was fine if I wanted to be an artist. So after that, I didn't have like an art high school or anything like that, just regular high school. I graduated in Colombia, and immediately I went to New York to SVA when I was 17. And I thought I was going to be a comic book artist. I actually got scholarships from SVA. You know, that was my portfolio. But I eventually realized that I sucked at it. I just wasn't good at it. I realized I loved to draw, but I was, you know, my visual storytelling skills were quite terrible. And that's what comic books, that's what actual comic books are about. Just a visual storytelling medium. But I knew that I could tell a story with one image, with a single image. That was me understanding that I had to, hone my skills to one thing. I realized that was it. I just wanted to do one image. And then I discovered painting through my teachers, and that was it. I fell in love with it immediately. It was by chance, I think. I didn't know any of my teachers. It was just a big, book where you would pick, a class with, just a bunch of numbers and letters. I had no idea who any of them were. And I guess I was lucky. I landed on classes that were given by just incredible teachers who are, to the date, I feel that they're, friends and they've been, in many ways accompanied me through my whole process. So I was very, very lucky, but I guess I was there so that things could happen. My mindset was there, so that, these great things could happen for me. So that's pretty much it. That's the quick version of how I ended up painting. And then I haven't stopped since. It's been my life. I feel totally comfortable and at peace with painting. I don't want to do anything else. I feel absolutely comfortable being a painter. I don't feel the need to expand. I don't find it limiting. I feel that all the questions I need to answer, can be answered through painting today. So I'm totally fine and comfortable, doing that. Now I teach. So, it's a great way to I guess to give back, but that sounds a little pretentious. Cause I sort of hope that my one doubt always is to know if I have the same effect as my teachers had on me when I'm teaching. And I don't think I do, but, I try to do my best. Cause they still are amazing teachers and amazing professionals. But I try to do my best to have a great effect on my students, to at least show them that there's this person in front of them that loves painting, that's absolutely devoted to painting. So I do that now. I've been teaching at the university for 10 years, at the visual arts faculty of the university for 10 years now. And I never expected it to be this long, but it's been amazing. It's been a great ride.
I love it. So what are some of the, you mentioned wanting to have the same effect that your teachers had on you. What do you think is your most fundamental kind of lessons that you teach them? And perhaps maybe lessons that they teach you as well, your students?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think I go back to teaching because teaching can be horribly frustrating. But I think every semester I just have this idea that I want to be in touch with, these young artists that are far younger than me, and that I want to see what they can teach me. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me, really, really in tune with my classes. Because you always hear teachers say this, but honestly, it is true, even if it sounds somewhat cliche, but the effect they have on me is probably, far larger than the one I hope to have on them. I'm constantly questioning everything I think I know, when I have students questioning, my beliefs in painting. So it's a fantastic way to just put yourself to test, to really see what exactly you believe in. And, I guess as far as what my teachers did for me, they just, led by example. It was amazing that first class, just watching that first class. And I've said this before, but watching Steve Assel paint, that first class, that one class was incredible. I don't know if I'm just making this a lot bigger than what it actually is, but it did change my life. It was something that I never expected to run into this amazing painter and then, see him paint from life and say, wow, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. It was that powerful. It was like a switch for me. And I can honestly say that you don't encounter those moments in your life you only see that very, very rarely. And that for me was one of them where I just, it was first class. He was already painting, and I just, sort of peeked over his shoulder, and I see this incredible painting, and I just couldn't stop staring. That was it for me, honestly. So it was just their devotion to what they do, the degree of love and respect that they have for what they do, the fact that they question it also. I mean, it's not like blind devotion. It's a person that, dedicated, their life to just this one thing, and to, sort of understanding oneself through that one thing. And I think that, that's what I got from them. I wish I could say it was more technical, but both of my teachers, Max Ginsberg and Steve Vassell, they were quite different teachers. And so it's, it wasn't a matter of painting like either one of them. Essentially they would say the same things, which, fundamentally I say the same things. You can go to like 20 workshops of 20 different artists, and honestly, you're going to hear the same exact things. There's nothing new. It's not like you learn fundamentals and then there's like advanced painting. No, painting is like super simple. The essence of painting is super, super simple. And of course it takes time to learn, but once you learn it, it's just there. It's the same things, and it's just what you do with it. So I've gotten people, with workshops I teach or through the classes I teach, I've gotten people asking me like, wow, this is like this is like the same thing I heard like from 5 other workshops. And I'm like, well, yeah, it doesn't change. Things don't really change. So in terms of the technical aspects, I mean, they're all the same. They're what I repeat. But I guess in terms of like their personality and the way they decided to be sort of my mentors and friends, because I do consider them friends. I guess that closeness and that warmness and the fact that you go through a very frustrating learning process, and you have people there who really push you and who understand and who tell you, that thing you're feeling, that really frustrated, that little thing in the pit of your stomach, that where you know that you're suffering while you're learning this, we've all been through that. And they just made it feel normal and comfortable, but they would push you. So that's what I've sort of become. I'm a very enthusiastic teacher, because I realize that, the technical part is just commitment and responsibility and just wanting to do, those things that inevitably are going to make you more solid. But you need people like, pushing you and reminding you that, this is what you want. This is what you love. In those moments where things are like super tough and very frustrating, which our career is like full of them. So that's my role. I always feel like I just, super high energy. Even if I'm having a bad day, I don't think it's, fair for my students to suffer if I'm having a bad day. Like, I just put it all away and say, okay, let's have a, like a kick-ass class and let's have a great class. Let's put everything into it. And then I can go back and, sort of remember my problems. But I feel that that's what they're, looking, in me. So I have to give them that, I have to give them that person that is just, immersed and loves what he does. So that's sort of me in a nutshell as a teacher.
For sure. Yeah. And that should be the point of art too. And any kind of creative passion is finding an escape from not an escape necessarily, but to enjoy that time that you are actually, at the canvas or at the word process or with your musical instrument or whatever it may be. It's enjoying that time and, being able to kind of escape from your problems that way. And I think it's really inspiring, what you said, about how basic it is, just learning the fundamentals. And it's really just about working on your own style. And I know that you've talked about this before, how you've gotten, that inspiration from your teachers and the people that have inspired you. But then how do you, find your own style and then don't just like kind of go off of their particular style?
Oh, that's probably the toughest part. Some people say like education is flawed because all you're doing is like creating these smaller versions of things that have already been validated by, institutions or museums or, whatever, or galleries. So if a student is doing something that vaguely resembles, I don't want to drop anyone's name because it doesn't matter, but that vaguely resembles like something that is already being deemed successful, a successful work of art. Our tendency as teachers is to say, wow, do that. I'll show you what, that one artist did and who was incredible at that. Just think about that. That's what you're trying to do, but better. That's what you're trying to do, but, far more complex. And some people, say that, art education is flawed because of that, because we're teaching from, art. We teach art, within the boundaries of art. So in my case, painting, sort of relies on just accepting that painting justifies painting. And that's a very, very, very tough thing to do. So if you take that, if you think that that's our process, which it kind of is, it's a very hard, thing to lean away from, because you do want to, if you have 20 people in class, you want to find a way where you can teach everyone. And at the same time, you can be respectful of everyone's intentions. But one thing that we have to recognize as teachers and as artists is that, influences are just a way to recognize ourselves and our interests and our intentions. That's all they are. Because if you take something superficially, if you take an image superficially, all you're going to want to do is just copy that first layer, that first sort of input layer that image has. And that's it. You're never going to understand the rest. So what I usually tell myself and I tell my students is that never stop at what's apparent. Never, ever. If you're looking at a painting, don't stop at the actual painting. Those can be wonderful things, like realizing how, he or she painted that hand. Oh, how she did this amazing portrait. How she made this form turn. How she controlled values. Things that are just fundamental again. And those can be thoroughly enjoyed. But you can't stop at just, a sort of type of brushstroke or a way somebody a way an artist stylizes stuff, or the way he or she may distort perspective, or the use of lighting, or those things are just very, very specific elements and tiny little variables into what's actually, important and relevant in a painting. So I always ask people, if you don't stop, what else is there? Try to dig deep and try to tell me exactly, why this painting moves you. Why are you gravitating toward this work of art? Those are the hard questions to answer. Those are the very important ones. Because once you learn how to paint, and it won't take you long to learn how to paint, because it doesn't take long. If you're really, into it, it won't take long. You'll get better. It's a very simple truth. It's the same thing with drawing. If you're willing to work hard, you'll get better. That's as easy as it can be. But once you have that tool, you have to start questioning yourself and questioning everything you like and everything you believe is true, and really try to get to the core of why you like something or why you dislike something. And when you hold on to those things, which are very hard to grasp at times, those can be the things that, lead your painting. Those can be sort of that guiding light for you. And that is far more powerful than just learning how to do lighting or understanding perspective or understanding proportions or anatomy. Those things, in the grand scheme of things, as years go by, those things are so sort of simple in a way. I mean, they're very, they take a lot of hard work. I don't want to minimize what talent is, or, the capacity of solving an image in very, very intelligent ways is. I don't want to minimize that. Not at all. I mean, I totally respect that. And in many ways, I'm a product of just working hard in that way. But essentially, art is amazing because it's about so much more, so many other things that are not really even dependent on those skills. So that's sort of what I try to tell my students, let's try to figure out why you like something. And in trying to figure out why you like something, you're going to learn something about yourself that is, far more useful than knowing how to paint an apple. So that's pretty much my focus on what I do.
Yeah, it's funny how it seems like the easiest thing to figure out. It's like, oh, just put yourself into the painting or into the writing or into whatever it is. But that is the most difficult thing to do, because oftentimes it's puts you in a very vulnerable place to kind of speak from your heart in that way. So what is your best advice for the people that are maybe struggling? Maybe they are technically sound right now,
right?
Yet they don't have quite that thing, like you realizing that you suck at comic books or whatever, like trying to find that unique voice that's intrinsically just them.
Right. For me, it was, in many ways, it was very hard. And like you said, you have to get to a point where you do sort of face yourself and you're, vulnerable. You do realize that these are questions that are hard to answer, because one thing is just you lying to your friends, but to lie to yourself, that doesn't work out. When you just face yourself and you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to be honest with this. Why did I paint this particular painting, for example? Like, honestly, why did I paint it? And many times you'll see people saying, and I've been, I can be accused of the same. I've been through this. And that's why I can honestly say that, this doesn't scare me, or I'm not ashamed of any of this, because I know that we all go through it. But I'll be sitting down, as all of us do, or I'll be going to an exhibit or a show in a gallery, or, I'll be sitting in front of my computer and I see some amazing image. It's like, it can come from anywhere, it could be something I look in the internet and it's in a gallery and, thousands of miles away, or it can be a show like, right across the street, and it moves me in a way that I'm like, oh my God, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I've been trying to do. And this person's doing it, and he or she is doing it in such an amazing manner. And you sort of kind of try to hold yourself back, but there's this part of you that says, well, do it. You've wanted to do this image for the longest time. Just paint it. Just, you have that sort of base to, build upon. It's right there, that wonderful image. But then you're stuck with that image and you can't get it out of your head. And you say, well, I'm going to justify my painting through that image. And if it works there, it can work for me. And essentially what you're doing is, you're taking somebody else's experience and you're attempting to make it your own. And that's not going to work. It may work in a very superficial manner. And you can talk yourself into believing that is your experience. But the truth is, it's never going to be. It's not going to work out. In the long run, again, and that's what matters. In the long run, those experiences, they don't teach you anything. They tell you that you were capable of painting something that wasn't your own. And that's not, you shouldn't be proud of that. So that's not what we want. So what we want, what I've told people, and I've been saying this for a long time, is just enjoy it. When you see something that you love, that totally moves you, just enjoy it. Sit back, enjoy it, be grateful that it's there, that, that she exists and she's making amazing paintings. Just be grateful and be a fan and say, wow, this is incredible. And I love this aspect of her work. But then go back and then, search and do, if she worked that hard to make that painting that moved you, you have to go and do the same thing. Go work that hard, because those people, the ones we admire, the ones we go like, wow, this is an amazing painter. This is an actual painter. This is a painter's painter. Those people put in the hours. Those people I'm sure they had a hard time also recognizing who they were, and they searched for it and they, they found something, and out of that experience, a painting was born, and, you eventually saw it and you were moved by it. So why do they, put all this hard work and then we're not willing to do that? We think that all we have to do is be moved by that painting and then go paint and then think about that painting all the time. No, we have to do the same thing. We have to. there's no other way of doing it. I always talk to myself, what is my own then? What is truly my own? And this is not an effort in trying to be unique, like universally unique. That's almost impossible. But what I do understand is that my experiences, the context in which I was born and that shaped the way I talk, the way I perceive things, and the way I paint, that is my own. That is like unequivocally my own. And if I go back and I try to find what it is that is my own, that is essentially my own, then in my case, it's people that surround me. It was super easy for me. I started realizing that I can't paint what I don't know. I can fake paint what I don't know, and I can make a nice painting, and I can make it about light or form or whatever. But when I truly want to paint, it has to be something I know. It has to be something, I can direct, and I can direct from experience. And to me, it was just, being a painter that paints from nature that surrounds me. It was family and friends and the spaces that, they inhabit and how I'm affected by those people. That was super, super easy for me. And I, for the longest time, I thought it had to be more complex,
Right. More grand.
Right. Yeah. It has to be about something larger than that. It has to make the world better. And it doesn't. Truth is, it doesn't. Truth is probably you move more people when you do things, in that manner. When you're actually telling them, well, this is my life. And people recognize in your life aspects that are also present in there. It won't be specifically the same thing, but emotionally, they can see and recognize things that are probably echoing, moments they have lived or are currently living. That's what I've been doing. And I don't think I'm going back because it doesn't make sense, just trying to make these sort of, external exercises, external in the sense that they're removed from my life. I can't. I honestly can't. I have to live what I'm painting. I have to be close to what I'm painting. I can't see how anyone would want to be, sort of different, how anyone would want to be distanced, or how anyone would want to be foreign to what they paint. It just doesn't make sense. So that's probably the hardest part. That's the hardest part for me, for, any artist, but, and a horrible burden for a student. Someone who's, a young artist who's, from, 17 through 21, those questions are horribly hard to answer, and they're uncomfortable to answer. So many times we avoid them just because, they're not fun. They don't make us feel good. So in my opinion, those are the questions that are important to answer, to try and answer. It just doesn't make sense to waste energy in other things. Like I said, if you do that while you're, honing your skill, while you're working really hard at just bettering your drawing skills, your painting skills, your observation skills, that's fantastic. You're getting the best of both worlds. So that's sort of what I try to push. It's a very tough thing. I always tell people, this is your life. This is not a couple of years. This is your life. So ask questions that are relevant for your life. That's the way to go about it.
For sure. Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is something that kind of transcends all disciplines. Like even with writing, like I've definitely found myself where I'm like, well, my life is not interesting enough to write about, but I think people can find that connection with your specific stories, and you can make, very seemingly very uninteresting life seem interesting, because that's kind of what life is all about. It's trying to, find that joy in your life anyway. But I really do like that idea of when you find something that inspires you, like kind of being at peace with it and not trying to necessarily copy it or be jealous about the fact that they got to this point, but it's kind of taking not inspiration from the actual painting or whatever it may be itself. It's finding inspiration from that person's journey, the fact that they kind of went through this battle with themselves for a very long time to go through that, to find their own kind of voice and find the inspiration that way.
Right.
I love that idea.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right.
And I think it kind of goes hand in hand. You recently wrote about the next Rembrandt, which I think kind of correlates to what we're talking about, the idea. Well, maybe you could explain it for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, I think I was making reference to the that printer that
right,
which is an amazing feat of technology. I love our drive as a species, to create these things that inevitably question everything we do as a species. And this one printer, these guys made this robot. Essentially, it's a printer that you feed a ton of like variables on, of how fundamentally a Rembrandt painting was painted, because you can do that. You can't, exactly do that, because, Rembrandt painted for, I don't know, maybe 40 years. And, paintings from when he was older are vastly different from when he was younger. But you can sort of feed all this information, because that's all it is. It's like, ones and zeros. It's all this information about how light is understood and how shade is understood and what pigments are used. And it's a 3D printer that prints not an object, because that's what we associate, 3D printers with, but essentially a three-dimensional layer, which is a painting, because, paintings are not 2 dimensions. They're 3-dimensional. So they actually start painting, this robot printer starts painting from the underpainting and then starts building towards the light and sort of glazes everything too. It's quite amazing. It's as a technological feat, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible that we got to that. We can do those things now, and we can question art in that manner. But it's ridiculous to think that, those things replace judgment, replace the ability to be moved by something. And the core source of why Rembrandt decided to paint that way. You can sort of decompose everything into, again, ones and zeros, into just information, to say just lines of codes that say, if this, do this. But there's a person, 400 years ago, there was a person that was making those decisions, and making those decisions based on, where he lived and, the context of the historical context of that time, and who his friends were and where he studied and who taught him how to paint. And it just doesn't make sense to believe that we can replace that can also be coded, that we can take this doubting human being who, lives and loves and aches and feels and makes good decisions and horrible ones. And because everything goes into a painting when you are that good, you're not a human being and then you're a painter, you are that person. So it's so dumb in a way to think that all it is just information that can be translated and coded and then fed into a printer. And then, there's this painting that, pretty much looks like a painting, and it evokes a style that could be, thought of as a Rembrandt. I think that if you are thinking that that's all painting was, just the execution of a painting, then you've missed everything. You've missed all the essential variables that actually were there and that are fundamental to making a painting. So I highly respect those people as, as scientists in a way, but I don't like what, this thing can hint, which is that those human experiences are also quantifiable, replaceable. That those are not. That's what we are. That's what's relevant about our species. The fact that we can be rational and that we question. That's the one thing that we can do. So why would we just step all over them and say, well, we made a Rembrandt. No, you didn't. You printed a nice painting. That's all you did.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it in the sense that it just makes you question things. And in my case, it makes it, it solidifies the fact that I truly believe that human experience is what drives a great painting. Just the life of that person, she or he is behind that painting. When you feel that, that's an amazing painting. And that painting doesn't look like anything. That painting can't be coded because it doesn't look like anything, because essentially it's different. It's as different as every single human being on this planet. So you can't imagine that painting. You can only see it when it's like in front of you. When somebody discovers how they are going to translate their life through painting, and then you're moved by it. Then you see it and then you go like, wow, I would have never imagined, this painting. So hopefully we can recognize the value in that, because nowadays there's tons of technology. I'm not saying like, go old school. No, not at all. But even if there's technology behind something, never underestimate like the driving force, which is like human experience. Us as a species, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sitting here nodding my head in agreement the whole time you're talking, because I think it's bullshit too. Like, it's one thing for, to make a computer that can beat a chess master, because that's like, you win or you lose, but there's no like winning or losing in art or creativity. And I think that you're completely right. That's where the magic lies of being a human being. And when the robots try to take over and eventually do take over, probably, that's the only thing that kind of separates us, is the fact that we can express ourselves in this kind of unique way that like you said is like a fingerprint, is like a face. It's a unique way that an artist, any kind of creative person, can put themselves out there if they work hard enough, like we've been talking about, to go through that journey to find that like kind of unique thing that makes you as a creative person. Yeah.
I remember one of the teachers that I love the most was my drawing teacher. And he may have not have been the best artist, among like all the teachers that I had. And for sure, I can say that and not feel weird about it. Like, he wasn't the best artist among them, but he would speak to me and it would get to me. Like, when he talked to me, he knew how to talk to me. He totally understood how to address me. And I thought that was incredible. And I remember this one particular time that I was just stuck, and I just, I felt that my eagerness and my energy to want to do, paintings and illustrations was far higher than my skill. So I was getting very frustrated because I wanted to, and I understood what I wanted to make, but I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the understanding to do it, and it was killing me. It's very frustrating. That's one of those things that frustrates, like, traditionally, trained artists the most, is when you realize, wow, I don't truly understand what I want to do, but there's a drive to do it, and you can't do it. And when you try to do it, the execution just is not there.
Yeah, that gap.
Right. And it was killing me. And I had this talk with him at the end of the class, because he was super kind with his time with me. And he said, you know what you need? And I was like ready to hear, like, you need to concentrate on form, or you need to do this, or you need to see you're trying to do this painting that has to do with perspective or light, and you have to like put some more time into this. And he was like, just go see a movie. Go out with your girlfriend, go see a movie, just live, just be a regular person. Just go out there. Don't think about it for a couple of days. Just go. And at first I thought, well, that's a cop out. That's, thank you. That's nothing. You said nothing to me. I was expecting like these super, objective truths. Like you suck at, perspective because you're doing this. Go practice this, specifically this. Go do these exercises because that's what you need. You'll see that makes you better at that. But I guess, he understood that was so easy to say. That was so predictable. That was so, because it is. I don't know how to do this portrait. Well, practice portraits. What do you mean? Just practice it from, the construction of the skull and try to understand form and just practice. That's so easy. That's such an easy answer that nobody likes, because people want to hear that there's like tons of magical answers, that everyone's hiding, that artists that are successful, they hide their answers. They hide the things that they, were able to understand and that helped them achieve where they are. But I think he just saw me there, just so frustrated and so immersed in this problem that he was like, just separate yourself from it and just live and let yourself have experiences in life. And then, then try to have some skill so that you can translate those experiences into whatever you're going to do, be it write or be it, play music or paint or draw, whatever. But go do the important part first, or always remember the important part first, which is life, have a life worth, talking about. And when I say worth talking about, it doesn't mean that you have to, jump from buildings like, every couple of hours just so that you think you're exciting. Because, like what you said, some people say, well, my life is horribly boring. I refuse to believe that. Even if you just live in this tiny little drab, apartment and it's all gray and you don't have a computer and you don't, you're disconnected from the world and all you have is like this tiny little window and you just sit there and stare. That's fascinating. That to me is like incredibly fascinating. You would be a fascinating human being to me if you think that what you understand is boring, it can't detonate just incredible, creative experiences. It can so become like a world building mechanic. It can be the most, boring thing in the world, but if seen through, proper eyes, if perceived well, there's nothing that is not worthy. I've never met anyone who I don't find like fascinating. I could paint people for the rest of my life just because, they're people, each person has just this incredible, fascinating story to tell. And to me, it's not a place for me to judge if what is boring or what isn't. It's there. Everything that is there, it's just ripe for the taking. It's perfect. Everything is perfect. So what we usually do is we convince ourselves that, we don't have either the right equipment or we don't have money at the time or we don't have the right studio space or we don't have, I was trying to paint girls, but I used to paint my girlfriend and now we broke up and now I don't have a model. Now I don't want to paint. And I had these ideas of painting, but now she's not there and I can't do this without. No, yes, you can. You can always paint. You can always do anything. Even if it's if you want to do a huge painting, you have a tiny place, paint as big as you can. Paint bigness in small paintings. Never let anything just stop you, because people that we admire, they don't stop. They don't. They just tell themselves, what do I need to do? This, and this. Okay, I'll do it. Don't make excuses, because if you're honest with yourself, when you're making an excuse. That whatever you have to do is possible. You can do. You probably need time. You need a little bit of money. You need some help. Just ask friends. And if you have to do it yourself, it'll take more time. So what? So it takes more time. Some people that do stop motion animation, they're stuck in their basement for like 4 years and they do a short. It's not even like, it's like something that's, 15 minutes long, and it's amazing. So teach yourself that, because I do think that that's something that we have to teach ourselves. Just don't stop. When you're moved by something, don't, walk away from it. Just take your time and realize, wow, that tree is amazing. I want to take a picture, but I didn't. I'm going to ask somebody, if I'm with somebody, just let me borrow your camera. I have to take a picture, send it back to me. Or if you see somebody who's amazing, just tell them, like, this is going to sound weird. I'm a painter. I thought you were incredible. Just, this is my work. This is my email. Just write to me back. I would love to paint you. and just take that first step. And that first step is just chock full of fear, because there's fear of rejection, fear of not, of thinking that, okay, I did all this stuff and still I was incapable of making it work. There's so much fear in there that we convince ourselves that it's going to be hard. It's going to be complicated. So what do? We do what's easy, and we just paint like somebody else. And that's it, because that's comfortable, because I know what to expect, because it's already there. So that first step, that's what exceptional people, do. They take that huge first step. And I honestly believe that they're scared too at some point. They're not amazing at this. They're not different than any one of us. They also feel insecure and scared, but they do it. And that's what we got to do. We have to commit, take that step. And in doing so, we're going to learn so much from ourselves that's what's valuable. That's what's going to be, important in the long run.
Yeah, there's always going to be excuses along the way. And if you can get past some of those excuses, there's probably going to be different excuses that your brain or is trying to tell you to get you to do the easy thing, like you said, which is either doing nothing or doing like the thing that you've already been doing. But like you said, taking that first step into a challenging endeavor, like to challenging yourself, that's the only way to really grow and to eventually get to that point. Like we've been talking about that journey where, you can find exactly your thing, your niche, your voice, that thing that makes you as a creative person. And it is that first step is a very tough thing, because that vulnerability that we were talking about before,
right.
It's just putting yourself out there, but you have to do it. And once you can kind of get past that, the momentum, the ball gets rolling,
I just did a Kickstarter, and I wanted to ask you about that. I just finished sending out all the books, and in many ways it was quite successful. But to be honest, and I don't want to I don't want to use this Kickstarter to say how successful, how much of a reflection of my work, this is. Dude, if I'm honest, I was horrified. I was like literally horrified when I said, I want to do a book, and I'm going to ask, and this was my thought process. I'm going to ask for money, but I don't want to ask for a lot of money, because, how can you ask people for tons of money to do a book? It just doesn't seem right. And eventually I got something like, $50,000 to do a book. But that first moment, and even those first days, that first week, I was like, this is measurable. I'm going to do this. And if nobody cares, it's like the world telling me that nobody cares about my work. And that is horrifying. That sort of thing it puts you to your knees. It doesn't, you don't want to wake up. You don't want to do anything if you realize that, and more so nowadays, which that is like the measurement of your success. How many followers, how many people liked something you did. In many ways, it's great, but in many ways, it's just an absurd way of measuring people, like real people. I'm not a better painter, or I'm not lesser of a painter if I did, if this thing went through or if it had failed. It doesn't matter. Those things they're not connected at all. Honestly, they are not. But when I was doing that, I was like, I'm a very niche painter. Painters know me, but I've sort of chosen a life where I can do just paintings that I want to do. And that choice I've made, I do very well commercially, but I've chosen the places where I want to work, and essentially I choose them and I pick and choose them in the sense that they let me do whatever I want. And a lot of people don't like that. So I fully accept that I'm not as well known as many, 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 many other painters out there. And when I do this, it makes me go back to asking, those kind of dumb questions like, oh, we're going to see how famous you are, or how much people like you, and it's not how much people like you, because, a like, when they just, double tap and heart you, that doesn't cost money. But when they have to pay, when they have to give you money, hard earned money, that's something that I took as, wow, this is like a sign of somebody really caring about what I do. And like I said, first couple of days, I was just mortified. I couldn't deal with it. I just didn't even want to look at the Kickstarter. I was like, I don't want to. It doesn't make sense. Why did I do this? Why do I put myself through this? I have 2 books printed. Why do I need a third one? I don't want to do this. So you question everything. I started questioning everything, questioning myself, questioning what I do. And eventually just people were incredibly generous and very supportive. And all I could do was just, answer back. And the only way I could was just making a really nice book. And, I made absolutely no money out of this. And I think people are going to respect that because I never planned on making money out of this. I guess some people out there say, well, if they gave you whatever, 50 grand, 100 grand, just make a cheap book. Kickstarter won't care. There's, people are going to get their book. That's what you said you were going to do, a book. So just give them a book and that's it. And then just, pocket, everything else. And I can't do that. I'm wired a certain way and I can't do that. I was like, no, these people worked super hard for me. I'm going to answer back. That's all I can do. And I'm going to make a book that's a very nice book. It was expensive to make and I just want to make something nice, a very nice publication. That's all I can do. And I feel super satisfied because that's, that it took a lot of hard work, a ton of hard work, but I think that's what I ended up with. And it was very straining. And like I said, tons of hard work because I had the book printed here in Colombia and then sent to the US and then shipped from the US. But I did everything myself. So it was just draining, like physically draining. But when I shipped the books and people started, answering back that they got it and how, like, first off, how surprised they were of how good a book it was in terms of production. I'm not saying anything about my work, but in terms of how well produced it was and how much they like it and how much, they're going to treasure it. And I was like, wow, this, it's almost like tears in my eyes because I was like, wow, this was a lot of hard work and that makes it worth it. That little moment, that tiny little moment. And that moment has nothing to do with, money or likes or no. It's just a person, like a human being telling you, dude, that was hard work and it shows and it looks great and I appreciate it. Thank you for being honest with your hard work. Thank you for giving back, a book that is worth all this effort. And that made it to me. I would tell anyone, if you're doing projects, I understand that it's, there's tons of ways of making money and many times we have to make money. I mean, I'm a teacher. I make money and I sell paintings. I make money. But, sometimes life is not about making money and life is just about doing things that are right, things that make sense. And for me, it made absolute sense to just be as honest as I could with that book and just give it to people and do a good job. I had to do a good job. So I would just tell people it's a horrifying experience because it makes you question a ton of things and you may be confronted with something that's, you may not get funded and you have to wake up the next morning and say, damn, that's hard. That's very disheartening. But in our life, like creative people, we're going to have great days where we, make whatever it is that we do, we have a song out there, or we have a play out there, or we have a show with paintings out there. And many times people are going to love it. And you feel like everything is right in the world. Like everything's just set up right. And everything fell into place. And the world was just, like you put all this hard time and effort and you've suffered. And the world, sort of the universe said, you know what? I see you suffering, but here's your reward. But there's other times where you put all that effort and nothing. The universe just says, you know what? Fuck you. It doesn't, you're going to suffer and nobody cares. And that happens. And that's going to happen. I don't care how good you are. That's going to happen, some point in your life. And literally, I don't care how good you are. That is going to happen. And people are going to forget about you and then people are going to know you again. But those hard moments, they are going to be there. I've never met anyone who's been successful at absolutely everything they do. Never. That doesn't exist. So those moments where you're just crushed, you have to pick yourself up and realize that you're going to learn from that. and you're going to be stronger from that. And then you have to keep going, because that's all you can do. Honestly, that's all you can do. If you're committed, and if you've said to yourself, in my case, I am a painter. That's what I am. Like, I'll start from there. It's not that I'm a painter, but I'm also going to work as a tech, whatever. I don't know. No, I'm a painter. That's all. That's all my eggs that are in that basket. There's no other choice. And if I'm there, and I made that decision a long time ago, I made it when I was super young. I can't let there's nothing out there that is going to break that. That is going to break me to the point where I say, well, maybe I'm not going to be a painter. No, that's not going to happen. No, not at all. That's the one thing that nobody is going to break, that nobody will take away from me. That's why I envision like these contemporary arguments where people question the validity of painting. If I was in one of those discussions, I could just say to people, you know what? You're right. And let me go back to painting. Like, I don't care. I won't care. The thing that moves me most in my life is so not dependent on anyone. I could care less what people would tell me, about my painting. I would still go back and paint. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with them. Antonio Lopez, which is an amazing painter, probably one of the most incredible painters alive. He says that painting for him is the only thing in his life that is his own. It's that one thing that is his own. Everything else is shared. But when he's painting, he feels that is his own. And I felt that. It was so wonderful. It's not selfish. And, it can be interpreted as just being egotistical and selfish. But it's not. It's not. It's just you working for yourself. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to think about saving people with every single act you do. There's also ways of like moving people, of having an effect on people that are nurtured and based on just self-recognition and just understanding yourself and trying to communicate with other people through your own experiences. That sometimes moves people far more than tons of other acts that are deemed like social, that have some sort of social commentary. So I do believe in that. I do believe in understanding that this is your choice. This is your life. You already made this decision. Just be honest about it. Be truthful. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to others. Like, be completely honest about it. I honestly believe that that's the way to go. That's, everything else is just ridiculous. Everything else is just the sort of attitude that doesn't aid the art world or doesn't aid the creative process. So.
Yeah. And it's sometimes the hardest thing to do is to get to that point where you're like, yeah, I don't really have time for those kinds of arguments, those discussions. I'm just going to do what I want to do because this is, my own time and this is my own voice and this is the thing that is mine. I think you're right. I think that's the point that everybody should try to get to kind of not be alone with your art, but to, like you said before, to be at peace with the fact that you're an artist and like that's your decision and nothing can stop you from being that,
Right. And just know that it's a hard road. It's not going to be easy, but nothing is. Honestly, nothing is. I don't know what you could pick in life that would be just easy.
Right.
So if you're convinced that it's going to be tough, then go do it. Go. Just pick what you love. Much rather, have hard days doing what I love than having hard days, because every single human being is going to have one of those days that suck. Doing something that's not my own.
Nicolás, man, thank you so much for coming on the show and for giving us all that push, man. This is really inspiring.
No, young man, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Man, absolutely. You can find Nicolás on his website, which is NicolasUribeArt.com. That's NicolasUribe art.com. And on Instagram, he is Nicolás Uribe. That's a B at the end of it. And we'll have everything linked up, though, at the show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Nicolás. Nicolás, thanks again, man.
No, thanks to you, Gilman. That was awesome time. Thank you.
I thank you to Nicolás again. Guys, I want to go back to early in the episode how Nicolás was saying that you can go to 20 workshops and hear the same thing. And I think that this is true for many creative disciplines. And yes, different people, different teachers will be able to teach you different tricks or skills or hints, but the fundamentals of most creative pursuits are relatively straightforward. They're like the scaffolding or the framework for you to go off in infinite directions with your own style, your own voice. And that's the hard part, is that work that you have to put in afterwards, after learning those basics, to find your own voice, to find your own style, your own message, your own spin on those basic skills, that basic framework. And I think that's so encouraging because especially when you're looking up to these amazing creative people who are at the other end of this journey that you have set forth on, this journey of becoming a creative person, becoming an artist, becoming a musician, becoming a writer. They seem light years away from you. They are on the other side of that gap. And yes, it might be far away from where you're at, but to see that potential and to see what's possible when you do put in that time and you do continue on that long and hard journey, it's really encouraging. And I think it's really important to see it as that, as encouraging and not discouraging. Because you won't be that person exactly. You'll never get to their level because they'll be on a completely different path. You need to find your own style. And like Nicolás was talking about, it helps so much when you can look at something that inspires you and take it for the inspiration that it gives you, not necessarily the technical skills of the artist. Be inspired by their journey and the fact that they were able to keep working day after day to get to that point, that they're able to impress you with their art, their music, their words. Use it as a sign that you can get there too. It's just a matter of walking your own unique path, your own journey every single day. And that includes today. So go get to it right now, because that's all I've got for you today. On Monday, we have Nukazuka, who are two brothers who make these awesome YouTube videos. You might have already seen them, especially if you're a millennial. They do all these awesome videos like Super Mario Brothers, What Happens When You Die, Pokemon Go in real life, Darth Vader versus Buzz Lightyear. These really awesome live action shorts that have really cool special effects, and they are crushing it right now on YouTube. You can find them pretty much everywhere as Nukazuka. That's Nukazooka. But definitely check them out on YouTube. And we'll have links to them on today's show notes page, which is yourcreativepush.com/196. But that is it for today. Hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So please go and get it done. Have a wonderful, productive weekend. I love you all, and we will see you on Monday. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.